In this segment, we reference the Book of Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, and the chapter is We Couldn't Avoid Him. And our translator is Samuel Brooke. Now, Brooke shows how one man is instrumental in exposing corruption in Serbia, okay? In the United States, we've heard about a figure, maybe, hopefully we've heard about him by now, but this figure named Jeffrey Epstein, right? And this may be our version of the man. I don't want to, make any suggestions about his predilections towards certain things, but in terms of just the idea here, follow me for a second. Now, Epstein, he had his whole PDF file stuff, right? But when it comes down to his the idea that he could have been utilizing honeypot schemes for various government agencies to trap our politicians, that's something that speaks to specifically the power system there, right? And I think what is definitely understated by really just the media in general is how connected he was in finances revolving around power, or how connected he was likely involved in finances of various powerful figures, okay? It doesn't appear to have sunk in just how deeply entrenched entities may actually be very much reliant on this idea of a cover-up in terms of why things have lasted so long. But it does appear to remain a relevant issue nonetheless, which is good. I think it's great for our part. And now, I think we need to understand that we are being eaten alive as a populace by the depraved few, okay? Now, say this with me: corruption is paid by the poor, okay? In Serbia, we got this guy named Sinisa Mali, okay? Mali became the mayor of Belgrade out of seemingly nowhere, right? But what's funny is that he was found to have a lot of money that could not be explained by his salary. Now, when he was questioned about him having managed and owned real estate through offshore companies, he boldly stated if he owns any offshore companies or any offshore properties, the investigators who are making the claims will get the keys. Now, lo and behold, the Pandora Papers came out, and he was shown to, in fact, be the owner. The investigators never got the keys, though, which is crazy. Now, and we covered some of the Pandora Papers in episode 2 of the Renaissance Sermon, and I hope you guys can certainly look back at that. But I think a common pattern was politicians who normally built platforms as figures fighting corruptions were being exposed for holding offshore money or mansions and basically just having very shady dealings, okay? And in the U.S. specifically, we seem to suffer from really a collective corruption fatigue, okay? But that may be really because things are still somewhat comfortable for us, okay? We can ignore the gap in wealth that exists and is perpetuated today. Now, when the idea is that when a politician's own offshore money or has shady bank accounts, I mean it's Tuesday. What do you want to do? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of how a lot of us walk around and treat it. And I think 2 countries out of all the politicians that got exposed, only 2 countries, Iceland and one other one, I forget what, but they actually overthrew their corrupt leaders, and applauds to them, I mean, for just standing up. But when it comes down to a lot of these countries, a lot of these other countries, officials that were found to have all these mansions and things, their countries, like they come from poverty-ridden countries. These people aren't just like, these people aren't just okay. They're the politicians are being paid off in various ways, probably for just the idea that citizens could now be used as slave labor in the mines or in their particular oil company or field, or basically have their lands completely stolen or whatever. Like, a lot of these people, the system that we have here in terms of, they kind of make sure that the most corrupt people have the most power. Those systems in these places, you can see like the effect of that is so much more apparent for these guys, and it is crazy because they're literally watching their people starve while they go on maybe like 5-month vacations. I don't know this per se, but they go on vacations to mansions, and it's absolutely insane. And you can say it with me, like, corruption is paid by the poor. Now, in Serbia, Mali was first involved with selling large companies for the government before he became a mayor of Serbia, right? And one thing that was absolutely insane was, like, literally in the middle of the night, this event happened, right? We talking about masked goons with baseball bats and bulldozers. They descended upon this community where there were people who were refusing to sell their property for this government-backed development that was happening, right? And this guy Mali, he was campaigning for it. The place was demolished, right? And later on, his ex-wife made claims that he bragged about organizing the whole thing, okay? So, despite all of this, he was promoted to the finance minister. Okay? The finance minister. Now, say it with me. Corruption is paid by the poor. Alright? Mali is friends with apparently the president of Serbia, which is something which is a figure in himself, apparently. I haven't completely looked at an article on him, but while Mali was rising, the country, like the citizens of the country, they were having their democratic powers reduced, right? And corruption has been like plaguing Serbia, okay? And the citizens who were like protesting against the conditions, like they really amped up after kind of this event in November 24th, right? Because there was a collapse of a newly renovated train station canopy in the city of Novi Sad, right? This killed 16 people, and it became a potent symbol of corruption's deadly price. Okay? Say it with me. Corruption is paid by the poor. Now, Mali is friends with the president of Serbia. Now, while Mali was rising, this idea of what was happening, he actually maintained favor with with the president, and even though there were people a lot of people in the administration were fired. Now, this is me guessing, but I'm getting the idea hey, maybe we can't quite keep up with this, this level of moral corruption. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is absolutely bananas. And this idea of what was happening, this guy was rewarded in a state, in a place where he was essentially like organizing attacks against the citizen. He was promoted, and it's crazy, like, seeing this particular like idea of a train, like, some kind of newly renovated train system or newly renovated train canopy just falling in, and it really does bring this idea of really what we see in America with companies, particularly like Boeing, right? Because Boeing's really being rewarded like various contracts, and these guys are getting money. These guys are getting taxpayer money, and they're like, by if not all, like most, if not all metrics, they're failing, right? In terms of like as a company, and keeping up standards and things like that, right? And I think a lot of us seem to be baffled at this clown show that's really taking place with these guys, and how whistleblowers are actually like dying at in parking lots or something. Like, it's pretty crazy. But there's a very dark suggestion behind the idea of this, like, this aircraft and aerospace giant that we know about, because Boeing is one of the big 5 defense contractors, okay? And these guys receive 1/4 to 1/3 of all of our defense contracts, okay? They're not accustomed to competitive environments where they would be forced to meet standards or even exceed standards. What we're seeing could be a symptom of this culture of the big 5 defense contractors. They are wasting a lot of taxpayer money, if you guys aren't aware. And it's really kind of a game with them. Like, hey, who can we pay with this? Whose pockets can we fill with this? It's really crazy, because they have bases close to Washington. All big 5 contractors, they have bases close to Washington, so they're able to drive and meet whoever they need to meet. In a lot of cases, it's pretty disgusting. But this relationship that they have with politicians, like, they're going to receive money regardless of what takes place, and they are so comfortable with that Boeing is literally like, it literally is a clown show with Boeing. It literally is a clown show. But I don't think there's any uproar about what's taking place, because it's just how things are. And in this chapter, like, Samuel talks about, like, particularly I think is really hopeful, is this small scrappy team of investigators that have been working to expose corruption, right? Now, I think this idea, this does give affirmation to the idea that we need to work on our own systems, right? And you can reference episode 7, Public Records and New Systems, for more information on this. But the idea here is, in this renaissance, we need to be intelligent and resourceful. Like, it seems that this abomination that we know is really Doge is defunding everything but the actual corruption. And I believe that this idea is actually lending to what I'm about to talk about in the Dragon King event, or what's going to come up later in this particular episode called the Dragon King event, where And it turns out that really with this Doge thing, with the defunding that's taking place, a lot of independent investigations or investigative like outlets and sources, they're taking a hit because apparently our money actually went into funding some of these agencies. And I mean, relying on a government to, to pay you to expose any type of corruption is already kind of shaky in itself. So I'm sure that they were already trying to look for other ways to do things. But, I want to say that this idea of, like, governments and, like, basically trying to have exert their power and their influence over people, they got a history of miscalculating how people respond, okay? And I've read cases where people develop systems to essentially become more resilient to government overreach, and in response to this particular pressure, this pressure of trying to, like, exert power and control over a populace. And I want you guys to understand that we have very real opportunity here, right? And like I said, we'll talk about this in the Dragon King event, but we may not be able to depend on governmental systems the same way after this.